لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So inshallah we'll still take the AL-ADABUL today. So we'll start another section. The book has been divided into sections. So we are finished with the issue of the Mawla. But what I want to remind us about, for this is particular to individuals, that we should remember in the hadith that we recited yesterday, that Prophet has mentioned that لا يأتي الناس بالأعمال يوم القيامة وتأتون بالأثقال فيعرض عنكم. This is to encourage all of us as much as possible. The Prophet mentioned that he was telling the Quraysh, but by extension all of us, that on the day of Qiyamah, I don't want you to be in a situation where people are going to come forth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a lot of good deeds, and you will now come with a lot of bad deeds, and then you'll be turned away from. For the lesson from that is, as much as possible, individuals should look at himself. Then you should not be deceived by the world. As much as possible, you should do the ibadah as many as possible. You know, Allāmah ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah mentioned that on the day of Qiyamah, certainly a servant will wish that he comes back to this world and observe 2 nafilah, so that one should not belittle any act of good deeds. Of course, وَمِنْ وَرَائِهِمْ بَارَزَخٌ, and behind them is the barricade, the barzakh, and they cannot come back. So this is indeed, there is a message in it for us. And one thing I wish to mention yesterday, which I forgot, is that if a message comes to you from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I've mentioned it before, I beseech us, I beg us, because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not be quick to oppose it. Do not be quick to detest it. That it's not possible, it cannot come from Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because about 2 weeks ago, we were with one of our sheikh, and he told us something, and that thing really touched me. And what he said is that man kathura ilmu, that this is what ulama mentioned, that man kathura ilmuhu qalla inkaruhu, that whoever has a lot of knowledge, that saying that this thing cannot happen will be very minimal from him, in the sense that you only know what you have read, you only know where you have been to. And I mentioned yesterday, and I was not joking, the quantum of message that the Prophet ﷺ has left behind is so much that you might not be able to see it all. So it's where you are. And I was saying jokingly that sometimes maybe somebody tell you, this is what has been reported in this. You will say, this thing is it really real? That is it there? Because you think you have read. But of course, that the person that thinks that the day you think you have arrived, that you have the knowledge, for me, is the day the person is dead. For those that are really knowledgeable, you will see them, they are very calm. They don't just talk. So but the message from that hadith is, please, in that message, is that we should not be quick to dispense with what President has mentioned. If you hear that something, take it. You can now go and do your own research. So if it is there, fine. If you can't see it, you still continue, you still further and ask from the ulama. I think that is the message. Now the hadith for today is, now the section for today is man aada jariyatayn aw wahida. That the section of whoever takes care, or whoever nurture and train the female children, 2 of them or 1 of them, that what the Prophet ﷺ has told us about them, about those people, the fathers, the mothers that nurture female children. Now, حدثنا عبد الله بن يزيد قال حدثنا حرملة بن عمران أبو حفص التجيبي عن أبي عشانة المعافري عن عقبة بن عامر قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يقول من كان له 3 بنات وصبر عليهن وكساهن من جدته كن له حجابا من النار. Hadith Sahih akhrajahu Ibn Majah rahimahullah. So this is the only one we take today. It's a short hadith, alhamdulillah, that the Uqba, the son of Amir, said that he heard the Prophet ﷺ says that whosoever has 3 daughters, he has 3 female children, وَصَبَرُ عَلَيْهِنَّ, and he is patient on them, وَكَسَاهُنَ مِنْ جِدَتِهِ, and he gives them cloth, that is, he clothes them from his own wealth, from his own money. Then on the day of Qiyamah, they are going to be like a shield for him from hellfire. For the hadith, I believe most of us or many of us will have heard it, if not all of us before now. But what the ulama have mentioned about the hadith with respect to explanation is that whosoever has 3 daughters, now that the message is to emphasize and re-emphasize that one needs to take care of the female children because of mainly 2 reasons. The one reason is that because of their nature, that they are, if you look at them, the women generally, they are tender-hearted. Their soul is tender, the body is tender, and at the same time, emotionally tender, of course, psychologically tender. So that as much as possible, that we need to be their protector. Now, the second reason the ulama have why it is being emphasized by the Prophet ﷺ is because of the attitude of human beings generally. One might think that it is the Jahiliyyah only. Yes, it has its origin from Jahiliyyah, that the attitude of human beings to, or the parents to daughter was abhorrible, was detestable. But then if you look at it in our own time today, there are subtle ways in which human beings still show and depict the abhorrence, the detest towards female children. If you really look at it critically, as I'm talking, we should sit down and everybody should evaluate himself. Of course, but for female, maybe if they listen to it, they should also evaluate themselves too. But there are subtle ways in our environment today whereby we put preference on male children as compared to female children. So the ulama mentioned that this is perhaps two of the reasons why the Prophet ﷺ is emphasizing that whosoever has 3 children, and you know he said 3 children, he didn't say 1 female children, but 3 children, of course, by the time something that happens to you that you don't like, if one happens, perhaps you'll still be patient. By the time another one happens, you don't like it, perhaps you'll still be children, but less, maybe your patience will start running out. Then by the time it gets to 3, perhaps you might now show the true color, what is in your mind. That this is perhaps the reason for mentioning 3. If it's just 1, then maybe the person will still be patient. It's 2, then the patient will start running out. But by the time it's 3, then the patient might completely run out. Now this is 1. That was Sabaru alayhinna. That whosoever has these 3 female children, then he is now patient. As we are sitting, alhamdulillah, many of us are fathers. And for those who are not fathers, they will come to see the reality that nurturing and training female children generally, wallahi, it is not easy. Before I became father, there are some things I used to probably say that today I cannot say them again because I have seen the reality. Let me give us an example, and I think I've started this example before. I was in Benin during residency to attend the update, and we had this our brother that we school together. I lodged with him. Wallah, very patient brother. Very, very patient in school. In fact, he goes gently. So by the time his son did something and he flogged him, the thing did, I was like, this brother that was very, very gentle so I was taken aback that so this brother can beat somebody. But then I didn't know that me myself, I will also be in that same shoe by the time you give birth to children. Now, because these children you see, of course, they are children as they are. They can do something sometimes that you just feel like slapping them. Because you just feel that, why should somebody that is reasonable does this? But then it's because they are children. I give us an example. And it happens, we all know about the story. The Prophet ﷺ sent Anas bin Malik on an errand when he was still very small. And by the time he was going, he met some children and he also joined them. They were playing. So the Prophet waited. Where is Anas? He didn't see Anas. So the Prophet himself has to go out. By the time he was going, he saw Anas. Anas was playing, and I've sent him something that the report that I will have is that by the time he got there, he saw Anas. So he just pulled Anas by the two ears from the back. And of course, he pulled him, then he left him. And Prophet went and carried out his own assignment and came back to his own house. Now, I mentioned it before that if it were to be me, perhaps I would have flogged the hell out of that child. That how can I send you? But this is what we see every day, day in and day out. That you send your child to go and do something. It's not because it's intentional. Of course, we saw this. There's one video clips a long time ago that somebody sent his, I think his child to go and buy drugs. And by the time he was going, he met children playing football, and they started playing. He started playing football with them. To the extent that he even forgot the drugs that the mother sent him to go and buy. So of course, by the time he got there, he went and he bought something that is entirely or something. I think maybe he has forgotten. I can't remember the whole gist. But essentially, is that you also see the video. So these are things that happens whereby during the holiday, and you know in the holiday, by the time your children wants to start holiday, you are happy. By the time it's going to 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you just feel they should go back to school. Because what they make you pass through. There's one video clips. It's a video clips that I think the father or mother was coming, and one of the children was standing on a table, put all this powder on himself, rub himself. The other one was carrying toy gun, and he was pointing it at the parent as the parent was coming in. But these are children. If you look at pediatrics, for instance, instead of pediatrics, you see at the age of 2, 3, 4, the children must start telling lies. They might start telling lies. In fact, intentionally they will tell lie. And it is part of like maybe they will just because they want to explore to see if I say something that is different. If you read the pediatrics, I've said something that is different, I want to see the reaction of my parents. So these are things. Some of the children, they will have temper tantrum, for instance. Some of them don't go there. It is that thing they will go and do. So generally for children, they need a lot of patience. That is why the ulamas mentioned that to train children really very well, somebody has to have an open heart to accommodate a lot of nonsense from them, but then you continue to train them. This is how to do this, how to do this. Wallahi, I beseech us. If you are the type that shouts a lot, as children, if you are not very careful, that child will also develop shouting, because he might believe that shouting is part of normalcy, because they learn, they look at you, they hear what you see. So what they see is what they learn from. So you are shouting every time. And that's why they say that an abused child is very likely tomorrow, as is in the pediatric, is very likely tomorrow to develop it into an abusive adult. So one has to, to exercise a lot of patience, but then it doesn't mean that one should spoil them. So you need to control them, and that's why Prophet mentioned, which is hadith, that in a house, at least there should be a place where you keep your cane, and you let the children know that, okay, this is cane. If you do nonsense, you are going to be flogged. Not that they should be flogged, because sometimes you can flog them. But of course, Prophet never flogged any child. He never raised up his hand against anybody except when they are in the battlefield. That is what our mother Aisha reported to us. But then, this is the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, it's different from us. We have been told to emulate him. I give us an example. We all know that Abu Bakr is tender-hearted. Among all the Sahaba that we know, when it comes to being gentle, is one of them. To the extent that some of the Sahaba were saying that when he was about to die, that you have left us with what we think we cannot cope with. And why I'm saying this is that one time Umar radiallahu anhu was saying as if Abu Bakr was quite very soft. When they were like debating about an event, and the Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said that you say I'm soft, maybe you need to be hard on something. And he said, is there any person in this life that is like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was able to combine two of these things you are mentioning, that softness and being firm. That he was able to combine them. That when Prophet sallallahu needed to be firm, he is firm. When the Prophet needed to be soft, he is very soft. And why is that? Because Allah has helped him with what? With divine help. So he was that is his own submission. So Allah could have what we are saying, that as much as possible, one should be moderate. But then this is more important for female children. So as much as possible, one should be tender And one should be a little, we should have a lot of patience when one is training the female kid. And that's why Prophet mentioned was sabara ilhinna, and that you are patient with them. Because to really train a female child, you need to be patient. In fact, I give us a practical example in our own environment. That one time, somebody who is my leader, in terms of the children now, he has an adolescent. And voila, he confessed to me. And he said, Kai, to train an adolescent child, it is not an easy thing. And of course, in pediatrics, we know, by the time they are becoming adolescent, they are reaching the age of puberty, there are a lot of hormonal elaboration, and that one affects and controls and influences their psyche. So that to train a female child for him, this is practical example, that it is not an easy. But then you cannot compare with the male children. So as much as possible, so the way you are patient with the female children, with the daughters, it should be much more than the way you are patient with the male children. That is the message in the hadith. And the third phrase is the وَكَسَّاهُنَ مِنْ بِدَتِهِ. And that whosoever have 3 daughters is patient with training them, and again, he now clothes them from his own wealth. Now, the ulama also explain that as much as possible, and I believe we all do this, that for our female children, for children generally, if you have money, please let them taste out of the wealth. If you are the person that have money, you should give them good things, the good attire, of course, good shoes. It should not be like what happened in some terrain, that where the male children are being given preference. So you take the male children to a very good school, and the female children, you take them to a school that is not so good. Now you buy clothes for the male children, then you leave the female children, and they are both living, they are wearing tattered clothes. Now you do this for this, and you don't do this for this. If you remember that Prophet warned us, as much as possible, one should be just between the children. Then much more for the female children, as much as possible. Because one thing is, this one is from practical experience too. You need to be very close to them. That is for the female children. They need to develop confidence in you as a father, as a mother. That when they see something that is bothering them, they should have this free access to be able to tell you everything. Because if you don't give them that chance, then they will source for that outside from people. And of course, we know what is happening in the world today, and people can easily mislead them. So we need to give them something so that they will not be looking outside. And it is in Quran. لِيُنْفِقُ ذُو سَاعَةٍ مِنْ سَاعَةٍ وَمَنْ قُدِّرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ فَلْيُنْفِقُ مِمَّا آتَاهُ اللَّهُ. So Allah has divided it into 2. There are those that Allah has blessed with wealth. Then you should let it show on them, but first in a moderate fashion. But those that Allah has not really given much wealth, then they should also be able to work. They should try their best, but then they should explain more importantly to them that, okay, this is what I can do. They should know that this is your capacity, not that our daddy is denying us. I will mention it yesterday. That if you want to spend, you should spend on yourself and spend on your family, for starting from a parent, then of course your wife, your children, and people that are close to you, as compared to outside that. I'm saying what I've mentioned because everything is not just about money. They said not all that glitters is good. And I think the best thing you can give to a female child, wallah, is to give them good training, good knowledge. I give us an example. Today, you create an halqa, or you create a training ground for the male children. And the male goes, and then you leave the females at home, for instance. And you do not provide something for them to train them or to teach them at home. So for me, in this our own era, is like what? Still segregating male and female. It is still giving preference to male children to female children. You see a male child is very, very knowledgeable in the deen and otherwise, but you see the female children, it is nothing to write home about. And why? Because we seclude them. We are not saying you should not seclude them. But if you must seclude them, then provide alternative for them, so that this one will not be talking about the deen, and this one female child, it is not. Now all of us, we are seated here. For those who are married, nobody among us wants male gynecologist or obstetrician to be delivering. I know this is because that is the way I feel, and we are the same. We are human beings. That I would rather prefer a female doctor, for instance, to review my wife. I would rather prefer a female doctor to attend to delivery of my wife. That is what I would do. And I think that is what we do. But if you keep them at home, you don't allow them to study medicine, how would that one happen? And that is what you see, alhamdulillah, I think things are improving now. Now, the point I'm raising is that as much as possible, the best we can give to female children is actually what? Is education, and it is training and nurturing. And in fact, it's not just a cloth. And that is why there's one poem, it has been mentioned that it is Ali radiallahu anhu that composed the poem, and Allah knows how true it is, that in fact, we were taught when we were still small. And I've taught my children to, because it's a good poem, so that we'll let the children know that it is not just money, but education is very, very paramount. They used to sing it for us when we were small. And recently, alhamdulillah, for my friend, in fact, he sent that same poem, and I remember it was recent, maybe like 1 month or 2 months ago. He sent, I saw it, on his page, where he just wrote it like this, one of my friends. And the poem is that لَيْذَا الْجَمَالُ بِأَفْوَابٍ تُزَيِّنَّا إِنَّ الْجَمَالَ جَمَالُ الْآكِلِ وَالْأَدَبِ ليس اليتيم الذي قد مات والده إن اليتيم يتيم العلم والأدب. And the meaning of that poem is a good poem. Sometimes we're going to school alongside my children, we'll be singing it because it's a very good poem. That ليس الجمال جمال بأثواب تزيننا. That what is called beauty, it is not really the beauty of the cloth that you give us. So it's as if it's a female children or a male children that is singing the poem to his parent. That for us, the beauty is not the cloth that you give us, that you beautify us with. The real beauty really is the beauty of intellect, and it is the beauty of what? Of good training. Indeed, an orphan, we know generally an orphan is somebody who has lost his parents. But then it is being mentioned to us now that an orphan is not somebody really who has lost his father, because eventually the father or the mother, they will eventually die. But then the real orphan is actually somebody who has really lost knowledge and who has lost what? The training. Because it is that trained knowledge that is going to give the person going until he dies. Because it's possible that the father and the mother will die before him or her. So Allah will have the message is that as much as possible, the training, if like I was saying before, if you are among those, the fathers that sit down, mothers that sit down to really oversee and to really teach the children, you will see that you need a lot of patience to be able to train them. And I mentioned that it is not allowed in Islam for you to give birth to children and you give it to outsiders to be training for you. You can send your children to school. That is fine. Of course, they are training. But then do not leave them at the mercy of them only. You should also take time to sit down, even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes per day, and sit down with them. And the last part of the hadith is that كُنَّ لَهُ حِجَابًا مِنَ النَّارِ. That whoever is able to train female children, that this one, they are going to be like a shield for him in the hellfire. And one of our sheikh, rahimahullah, he gave us a story. Very beautiful story, and it can also be scary about this. That there was one time, and that this story is a real story, that there was one time a man gave birth to, of course he got married. The first child was a female. The second child was a female. The third child was a female. The fourth child was a female. The fifth child was a female. So after he gave birth to the fifth child, then the father started becoming jittery. He started becoming worried. He started becoming angry. He started telling the wife that you are just giving me female children only. Why this, why this? And that the female and the wife responded with the ayah in Quran. That this is a real life story. Our Sheikh mentioned it. That Lillahi mulku samawati wal ard yakhluqu ma yasha yahabu liman yasha'u inatha wa yahabu liman yasha'u dhukur. That the wife responded, what a good adab, what a good knowledge. That the wife responded that to Allah belongs the mulk, the treasure, everything about this life and the akhirah. That he decides to give whom he like, the female, and he decides to give whom he like, the male. And that sometimes that sometimes he combined them. And if he so wish, if he so wish, in fact, he will even say that this person is infertile. This person will not be able to give birth to any children. And Allah knows best how He decreed. That the wife was even the one that was now giving the husband the advice from Quran. That this is like a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why will Allah give you a gift and you detest and you even hate the gift? Don't you know some people, they don't even have, they spend a lot of money but still they cannot have the children. So the wife was advising the husband that this is not my own making. We are all medicine people. We are all health professionals. Who should be blamed, sir, if you want to blame? The wife can tell you, it's what you give me that I accept. I do not create the child myself. So you are the one that gave me something, and that is what I incubate for you. So that is if you want to take it to the other way. But the wife was he has a good adab, and he told the husband that this is like this. And of course the husband then calmed down. By the time they gave birth to the 6th children, it was also a female child. This time around now, the patience of the husband was stretched to the brim. That this time around he was very angry. In fact, threatening the wife that if you have another child again, if it's a female children, as if he wants to, if he will go to let her go. Now, the wife, now she was now pregnant for the 7th child. Of course, so the husband was waiting. It was close to the time of delivery. And it is mentioned that the husband had a dream. And we know the position of dream in Islam. But that is not the aspect we are going to. But what the ulama mentioned is that الرؤيا المنامية تكون للبشارة وتكون للنذارة ولا تكون عليه حكم شرعي. And of course, it's good to the last part is good to just not to explain, just to mention that if you dream, because it's something that we see in the environment today. If you dream, the dream sometimes can be to warn you. Sometimes it can be to really give you a glad tidings. But then we should always remember that the Sharia of Islam, it is not pegged. It is not dependent on dream. Please, we should know this. Because the Prophet ﷺ has gone to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he was alive, some people had dream. Of course, the azan that we call today is some of the Sahaba that had the dream. And of course, it became established after they told the Prophet ﷺ, and he told them that this is real. But then, before the Prophet ﷺ went to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has mentioned that Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum. So the deen has been completed. So if somebody comes today, and please, this is very important because people have been misled. If someone comes today and say, I dream that I dream that I saw the Prophet ﷺ, I saw Allah's Prophet said that between Zuhuri and Isha, between Zuhr and Asri, there's a specific prayer or there's a specific salat that should be observed. It will be difficult, otherwise we will destroy the deen because the Prophet is no more alive. So and that's why the ulama mentioned that the Sharia it should not be pegged on the dream, because if you come, Prophet is not alive to what? To establish that this is real. And Allah has mentioned that the deen is complete. So the issue of dream, please, you cannot base the Sharia on it. It's not possible. And it is reasonable to all of us sitting here. Otherwise, I will say I dream. Otherwise, my brother will say he had a dream that Allah told him that he should do this thing. And Prophet is not there, and the deen has been completed. Please, it's just to explain that. Now, when the man woke up, the man was really afraid. That, okay, what is this? What is this dream? What is this dream? So he started praying that, in fact, I'm sorry I missed one part of the story. That one part of that story is that while he was having the dream, they took him to a gate of hellfire. And by the time he got there, he met one of his daughters pushing him back, that my father, like serving as a shield, that pushing him back, that okay, my father, no. So then he was moved again to the next door of the hellfire. By the time he got there, he met his daughter there. His daughter was also pushing him back. So it continues like that. You know, he has how many daughters now? He had 6 daughters. By the time he got to the 6th one, he met his daughter there, was having as a sheet, pushing him back. Now he got to the 7th. How many gates does hellfire have? 7. Laha sab'atu abwab likulli babin min juz'un maqsum. So by the time he got to the 7th, there's no daughter. He didn't meet any daughter there. As he was on the verge of being pushed into the hellfire, then he woke up. So when he woke up, he was really very afraid. So what do you think he would do? That he started praying that Allah give him a female daughter. And subhanallah al-azim, by the time the wife, in fact, that he went to doctors, like I mentioned, that this is a reality, or what our sheikh mentioned, this is a reality, is a real story that he was told. By the time he was started going to doctor to even tell him, you know, all these things, that what is all this ultrasound thing, that what is the sex of this thing, what is the gender of this or this one. By the time he gave birth to child, Dr. Lawal, what will be your prayer for him? We pray that he give birth to a female child. But as Allah has decreed, he gave birth to a male child. And this is where the story ended. Of course, it's not something that was followed up. This is where the story ended. But like I mentioned, that the ulama mentioned that sometimes dream can be a form of warning. It can be a form of what? It can be a form of glad tidings. So what do you think the person should do in Sharia by the time you wake up? If you wake up and you dream something that scares you, what should you do? You should do what the person has told you to do. And we know them, there are about 6 of them. But this is a dream that what? It really scared him. Then you should do all those things that the Prophet said we should do. Like this is the story that one of our alim who did the sharing of this book actually told, that as much as possible that one should be patient, especially for the female children, and that it is coming from the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ, that whosoever Allah has blessed with 3 children and is able to nurture them very well, that they are going to be hijab for him against the hellfire on the day of Qiyamah. And like I mentioned, you know the practice of the Jahiliyyah, the Jahili people. Of course, we know it is in Quran, Allah has mentioned it. They said they so detested female children to the extent that some of them, by the time the female is about to give birth to the wife, about to give birth, they said they will allow them give birth at the side of what? At the side, they will have dug a grave. They will make the woman go there and go and give birth there. As the female child, the child, they what? Immediately they will bury that female child. So وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَذِيبٌ. That because we were so angry. But in our environment today, if you really, everybody evaluate himself critically, you will see it's not bad. I need to mention this. To pray that, oh Allah, give me a male child. I want to have him. It's not bad. You ask what you want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you pray that may Allah put barakah in it. That may Allah bless the child. It is not bad. But if Allah so decided for the wisdom to give you what He has decreed, then the person should not be angry. Because some people, what? They will be angry. You just give one male, female. I want a male child. You can be praying that Allah should give a male child, but one Allah has come with His decree, then one should accept it, and Allah will bless all of us. I pray Allah forgive us our shortcoming, and Allah admit us to paradise of Qiyamah. Wallahu a'lam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.